I felt like light, and I felt like the remembering was like all these little lights coming into me. I described it before like billions of children tickling me. It felt amazing. And it just kept going. At some point, they're again using words to describe it. It felt like this light like grabbed me. I instantly thought that it was my father, but it's more what it felt like. It felt like my father picking me up when I was a child. The only thought was, thank God he's got me. Like I just melted into the light.
My guest today is Drew Brophy, who had one of the most severe and recovery that I have ever heard. And in the process, he had a near death experience where he experienced his higher self, his complete soul. And I am really excited to talk to him today. So, Drew, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So,
Yes.
why don't we start with your life? This happened only about 4 years ago. Who were you before this entire near death experience happened to you?
Um, well, I live in San Clemente, California, and I'm an avid surfer. And I've been an artist my whole life. So I've run an art business, mainly in the commercial space where I design stuff for the action sports industry. That's surfing, skateboarding, snowboarding. And of course, I lived that lifestyle. I have my whole life, so very active. I have my business with my wife, Maria. She's been my business partner all these years. And we have a son, Dylan. We raised him and traveled the world with him. So we've had a fantastic life. And yeah, my son had just graduated high school and was going to college, and COVID hit.
So, why don't you tell us about what happened to you and your experience that you had during your induced coma?
Yeah, so I'd like to begin with the when the whole COVID scenario started. I understood what it was without going into details. And I was very frustrated with the things that were happening. Immediately, our business took a significant loss. My son was sent home from school. His school had closed. So just like everyone else, we were in shock. But I had prided myself on being strong, um, taking care of my body my whole life, super healthy. Same with my wife and my son. And in San Clemente, where we live, there's a lot of athletes and a lot of outdoors people. So just in general, our town was very, let's say, more open than not. And so I was not worried to say, I figured everybody was going to get this at some point, and I would probably get it at some point, and I would uh, not be severely affected since I'd been taking care of myself. And that was the thought. I did not get the vaccine. I do not, I've never had any vaccines, so I didn't feel the need to get one. And I quite honestly, I did not trust it. I felt that it needed time and for me to make up my own mind whether that was necessary or not. We did get a lot of pushback from that from different people. I didn't get COVID until November of 2021, so late. And so I felt like I'd been living my life, and I figured maybe I'm not going to get it. Maybe I'm strong or whatever, but I did get it. And unfortunately for me, we were really prepared. We had a COVID kit of all the things like vitamin D and zinc and quercetin and ivermectin and all the things that you would need in case you got sick. We called it a COVID kit. And we traveled with it, and we were prepared. If we got sick, that's what we were going to do. And it just so happened that my son had moved across country and we had to move him, and we forgot to bring it. And because there again, it was later on, things were already opened up and whatnot. And Prior to this, I'd been so busy trying to save my business, help friends, and help my son that I'd worn myself down to about as worn down as I could be. But I'd won. I'd solved all the problems and I was on my way home driving across country. We weren't seeing hardly any people and I felt a tickle in my throat. And I didn't even think I had COVID. I just thought I was run down. It takes about 5 days to drive across country. By the time I'd gotten to about Colorado, I felt really sick. I got out of the car one day and it was like I knew something was wrong with me. I'd never felt like this, but I still had 2 days of driving to go. I probably should have gone to a hospital right then, but that was not something that I was used to. I'd never really been to a hospital. So probably my mistake. And I tried to push through it. My wife also had caught it, probably for me. And so she wasn't thinking real well. And my thought was, and there again, we still didn't know we had it. We just thought we were gotten a cold or something or just sick. So my thought was I was going to go home and I'd get in my own bed, I'd sleep it off, I'd rest, and I'd be better. And that's not what happened. If we would have told somebody, maybe something would have been different. But we didn't. We were both so sick that we didn't even tell anybody. And so by the time we figured out we were sick, it was like 5 days in, and I just wasn't getting better. And so we finally went to an urgent care. And I was still walking and talking and stuff like that, but I just wanted to sleep. And anyway, they said my oxygen was in the 70s. I didn't even know what that meant. The lady said their machine must be broken. They were waiting to see if I had COVID, and I did. And then she checked the machine again, and she said, "You need to go to the hospital right now." I didn't know what that meant either. We went to the hospital, and I want people to know that, I thought I was going into the emergency room and I was going to get given medicine or something like that. They were waiting for us. They were called ahead. As we pulled up into the hospital, they were waiting and they pulled me right out of the car. I didn't get to hug my wife goodbye, anything. I thought I was going to see her inside. The next thing I know, I was whisked away and I did not see my wife again for over a month and a half in person. They did a CAT scan. When I first got in, it was very chaotic in the hospital. I was not worried. I was not afraid. I just was sick. When the CAT scan was over, the tech was walking with the doctor, talking to him. And I could hear them talking. He said, "Yeah, this guy his lungs look really bad. I don't think he's going to be a good candidate," or something. The language was very negative. It was almost like they were sizing up my prognosis right there. I don't remember the exact words, but I understood that they were talking about me, and I was being put somewhere where it sounded like they were just taking people to die. And that alarmed me. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good at all. In the COVID area, it was a back part of the hospital. It was all plastic on the walls and everybody in hazmat suit looking things. And I want to be very careful to tell people that I am forever grateful for the doctors and nurses that saved my life and helped me. But it's a balance between saving my life and not killing me. So I am grateful for both. I'm grateful they saved my life and I'm grateful they didn't kill me.
Wow.
So with that being said, there was lots of mistakes. There was things I felt sorry for them because they've been handed this bomb. In those 5 days or so I was in that area, I was really bad off. I was given remdesivir. It made me worse. And I thought I was going down. And then one day I felt better. I hadn't been able to sit up, and I sat up and I was like, oh man, I feel better. It's over. I started texting people. My phone was lit up. I hadn't been able to talk to anybody. And so I was texting people. I was like, no, I'm okay. Thanks for thinking about me. I should be coming home soon. And I was actively doing this, and I was breathing. Like I said, I was an athlete. So just breathing, it felt so good to breathe. And I didn't know it, but my lungs were so fragile. Nobody told me not to do this. Maybe it was my mistake. Maybe it wasn't anybody's fault. But when I was breathing like that, it was tearing holes into my lungs. So I'd beaten COVID. What had happened to me is my lungs were so fragile that I tore holes in them. The nurses came in, all emergencies, there again, CAT scan. And they immediately started, I was on minimal oxygen at the time. I think it was like 2 or 3 liters of oxygen. They immediately turned it up to 100, like full blast. I think it's 10 liters. And then they also had a blower, which was blowing oxygen. So it's like double oxygen at 100%, trying to inflate my lungs. When the doctor came in, he said, we need to put you in a coma, put you on, intubate you. I understood what that meant. I said, most people you put into this, they don't make it. And he said, no, some make it. And I said, I'd rather not be intubated. And he says, you don't understand, you're going to die. And he was broken up, a little angry at me. He said, no, you don't understand, you're going to die. He said, you choose to fight, you will die. But more than likely, you'll probably die of a heart attack or a stroke, and it's going to be awful. You do not want to die this way. He said, it's bad for you, your family, for my staff. He says, better if you just go to sleep. You won't suffer. It's a very humbling experience to have this told to you. I felt so bad for him. I decided to fight. And he let out a sigh and said, okay, I'm going to honor your wishes, but I'm going to move you to the one room that has a window so you can say goodbye to your family. That was the first time I saw my wife in person. I feel like I'm a witness for all the people that had to go through this. I know what it's like. It's very surreal. I told my wife that I was going to fight, and I tried to that night. I had to stay up all night trying to breathe. When your lungs don't inflate, it's the weirdest feeling. So you're like on the verge of passing out, and they're blowing oxygen. The machine is very loud. And I had to stay up all night. And I realized I could not stay up forever. And in the morning, I almost passed out. And if I would have passed out, I would have died. And I didn't. I agreed. I said, okay, I got to try the coma. My wife came back to the hospital early that morning. I told the doctors I'll agree to go in the coma. I was able to make one phone call or 2 phone calls, excuse me, one to my son and one to my mother. And I told my wife, I said, I love you. I said, if God decides to take me, there's nothing I can do about that, but I'm going to fight to stay. Do not let them turn this machine off. And with that, they gassed me and the world faded away.
Wow. Drew, what touches me so much? I almost feel like I want to cry. The doctor tells you you're going to die, and your immediate reaction is to feel bad for him that he has to tell you that. That says a lot about you as a person and who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm
Um,
sorry that you had to go through this with all your family. And it's incredible because I had an uncle who died of COVID while he was on a respirator. He was 80 and he was overweight. He had some of the comorbidities. So to hear this touches me a lot.
yeah, it's a very lonely feeling, but it changes quick.
Changes quick. So this is the part. I think we all want to hear. So, will you tell us about your
Yeah.
experience in coma?
They told me that if I had any chance of coming out of the coma, they would know pretty quick in a few days. I said it was less than 20% chance. I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it was right away. All I know is I just popped out. I didn't see myself laying there in the bed. It was like all of a sudden I was just set free. It was very obvious I wasn't the body. I can remember having that thought. I was like, oh, I'm not the body. I didn't really ask what I was. It just felt so good to be rid of it. It was like taking a big deep breath. Like just and it just kept going. All I could think was, how did I ever forget? I just felt like I was getting bigger and bigger. I was remembering. That's what it was really like, is like a remembering. Like I felt like I was everything and everyone, but it was coming to me fast, like a remembering, and it just kept going. All this happened almost instantly. If you can just imagine, I'm not the body, like, and you're remembering that much, but it's just coming so fast that it quickly becomes bewildering. You just can't believe it. You just can't believe you forgot. You try to articulate something that doesn't have any words. You feel like light, energy. You feel definitely a feeling of going up or in a tunnel, like a feeling of like being sucked up by a vacuum cleaner or something. There's definitely that sensation. You start losing what it is that's you, in the sense that you're still you, but it's getting smaller and smaller. And it's not that you're getting smaller, it's just you're remembering everything else. What you think is you is like microdust. Feels like going home, peaceful. I felt like light, and I felt like the remembering was like all these little lights coming into me. I described it before, like billions of children tickling me. It felt amazing. And it just kept going. At some point, they're again using words to describe it. It felt this light like grabbed me. I instantly thought like that it was my father, but it's more like what it felt like. Like it felt like my father picking me up when I was a child. The only thought was, thank God he's got me. Like I just melted into the light. So comforting. It was like more than my father. It was like all my ancestors, or everything. Like I was being absorbed into it or welcomed or something. I can understand why other people say they see people, or they're trying to describe something that's unbelievable. And it's more of a feeling than something. The seeing is all light. The seeing is all energy. There's no time there. When I came back, I felt like I was gone for 1,000 years. But when I was there, it was just all peace, and you just melted into it. At some point, this other energy or light, just remember it hitting us really hard, very disruptive. Didn't have any idea of what it was. Very powerful. It seemed like it was pushing really fast, like we were shooting through the cosmos, and it was pushing us so fast, and it was almost knocking all the little lights out of me, keeping them away, like I was ceasing to exist. I thought I was going to vanish. It all stopped. Everything was still. That's when I was told to come back. And it was like a remembering too. It was like me telling me. And the exact thought was, we're sorry it had to be this way, but we needed you to understand. And we need you to go back. And I can remember my thought being, go back where? I said, Maria and Dylan are waiting for you. I felt terrible. I'd forgotten about them. I'd gotten so caught up in this that I'd forgot. I was like, of course I'll go back. I'll go back. It felt like I was like signing up for a military mission or something. Agreeing to go back somewhere. I don't know how to go there. Where is this place? Where is it? You don't have to worry about that. It says it's going to be awful going back, but you'll live. And we're going to need you to get strong again. We need you to tell the others. I'm not sure what exactly I'm supposed to tell you. And he said, you're going to live and you need to get strong again. Something's coming. I don't know what it is. I just was like, okay, I'll go back. And at first it was all great. Felt like I was floating down like a feather. It's like, okay, I'll go back. And then it just got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until I was being squeezed. It's like I was being smushed into a bottle. It was terrible. I tried to go back the other way and I couldn't. I don't remember waking up right away. I just remember the unpleasantness of being put back. I don't even know my first memories seeing if that was when I just woke up or if that was later. But the first thing I remember waking up is there was people with like hazmat suits and the plastic and all that kind of stuff. It was dark. It's almost like I forgot what people looked like. What are those things? I thought I came back to the wrong place. Felt like I was gone forever. It had been 28 days. 2 days into the coma, they told my wife that I was done, that they should turn the machines off. She refused. Each day you're in the coma, the drugs are slowly killing you. Fentanyl, propofol, Versed, pentobarbital. Start to die, and all the blood's going to your organs, and your limbs are being deprived of blood and oxygen. Your body atrophies. I lost over 100 pounds in 28 days. I went from 210 to 105, maybe even lower. We don't even know. I was a skeleton. At first, I didn't realize I was paralyzed. I thought I was being restrained. I thought I was a prisoner in like alien autopsy or something. I don't know how many days went by before I saw my wife. Then I realized I was in the right place. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. I was trapped in my body. I had so many things stabbed into me. I had a thing down my throat. Eventually, they cut a hole in my throat to do a trach. I almost bit my tongue off with the thing in my throat when I woke up. It's when the real battle began. Yeah. It took me 4.5 months to get out of that hospital. I beat everything. That's a whole nother story.
Wow. That was, I felt like an emotional roller coaster. I can't even imagine living through something like that.
I'll never be the same.
How could you be? I have a lot of questions for you. One of the things that touched me the most that you said, because it hits really close to home with my out of body experiences, is you kept saying to yourself as you were becoming the expanded version of your soul, how do we ever forget? How do we ever forget? And every time I have been out of my body and I've become my soul again, it is unthinkable that I could forget the power of what I truly am. But we do. We have this veil. We come here to have this experience and we do forget what we are. So, can we talk a little bit about the power of our soul? Not just yours, not just mine, but every single person listening, because this is probably the biggest message. This is what my channel is about, is helping people to understand the true power of who and what they are that they have forgotten. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure. Everything's a remembering. It's reaching out to you every second, trying to remind you of how powerful and wonderful you are. In a way, there's no you. It's all you. Everything. If you understood how powerful you were, everybody would be doing amazing things. When you see an athlete doing something amazing, that's him remembering. The body knows what to do. The body's just a machine. It's the operator, the energy. You're not the body, you're the energy flowing through it. It just means that the connection is good. I like to think of it as connected and disconnected. When you're connected to who you really are, you do amazing things, create beautiful music, beautiful art, beautiful words. You have the capacity to build amazing things. You're a creation machine. It's all powerful. It's never going to stop. When I came back into that dead body, I heard the doctors talking, saying I should be dead soon. There's no way I'm going to live another night. I knew what I was. I was like, I can keep this body alive forever. You have no idea. That's the power of who you really are.
That makes me want to cry because that rings as the ultimate truth. I hope that everybody rewinds this and listens to this again, like every day for weeks, to understand the power of who they are and what they can create. You said that they told you that you had to come back and you weren't sure why. It's been 3 years. And you also said that something is coming, you don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's
Do you have
been,
an idea now?
I think so. It's been just over 2 years.
Okay.
It'll be 2 years to the day that I came home from the hospital next week. I don't know why I was told to come back. I'd really never listened to a near death before. I was in tears when I read the first one. It was
Because
so,
it resonated so much with what you experienced?
yeah, used the same words.
Mm,
I don't identify with all of them,
hmm.
but they're all so similar. It was like me talking to me. And I gotta think that due to the fact of who I am, and I've been able to travel a lot and meet a lot of people and touch a lot of people, and I've always lived my life a certain way. I have a feeling that the collective of people pulled me back. They said, no, we need him. I think that's what it was. I think that big, intimidating, powerful light was energy being given to me to fight. It was sending me back with the power of a warrior for what was the most brutal ordeal that I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I think that's what it was. They were giving me the power to live. I think the message is that people need to wake up and they need to get connected. It's like a disease, the disconnection.
You mean the disconnection from our true higher self?
Yes, I think the addiction of being in this place. People don't want to get old. They wish they could live forever. You do. But in this place, they've forgotten. In this place, they think there's something to win. There's no winning. It's all just experience. When you cross over, you don't take anything with you, not even this body. The only thing that comes is the experiences you had with others. In a way, we're all having an experience for each other, the good and the bad. But really, there's no good and bad. It's just experience. So when somebody's doing something good, they're having that experience for you. There's no need to be jealous. When somebody's having a bad experience, they're having that experience for you. Say thank you. I think that The goal is to show people the way of connecting back to their true self, the energy, because it's relieves suffering. The disconnection makes you feel alone. It's impossible to be alone.
Tell us why. Why is it impossible to be alone? Because a lot of people right now watching feel very alone.
Because you're everything. You're everything. Every person is a reflection of you. The disconnection itself makes you feel alone, separate. You don't recognize yourself in others. Or you trying to remind you who you really are. You don't want to listen. It's so beautiful when you understand it. It's hard to see yourself suffer in others. You just want to wake them up, but sometimes they're not ready. They're just not ready yet. And that's okay. They're having that experience for you too. But I think something's coming. I think the energy is changing.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What had a lot of time to reflect on this and a lot of time to process what's happened. And you can see the world from such a different lens than most of us see the world. What do you think is changing? What do you see? And do you just see it or do you feel it on a different level than you would have before you had this experience?
Both, both. I think there's a type of madness of waking up and a type of fear. I can see it, but it feels so good to release all this delusion, illusion. I'm still processing it. I've felt like I'm caught between two places.
What's the biggest illusion you think that people are caught in, and
Fear,
how fear, and how can they begin to process, release, and let fear go?
it's a surrendering. It's just like the moment I agreed to go into coma. It's a surrendering and the will to live. It's both of these things. So you have to surrender to faith, I guess, of that you are this amazing being. It's trust. It's when you have that, you can't be lied to anymore. It makes you feel powerful. But there's fear in that, because so many people have been maybe told what to do or had these ideas put in this machine's head. It's like the machine's not listening.
It's like a deprogramming.
Yeah. You have to get control of your mind. It's all mind. The mind controls the body. Where the mind goes, the body goes. And there's nothing to fear. There never was and never will be. We're creation machines.
Mhm.
Let's make sure we create something worth living in.
Amen to that.
The people in fear are creating more fear, trapped.
What are some of the lies that you believed before that you no longer believe now after your experience?
I look at myself now, I'm like, oh, I'm not this. I'm not this thing. It's like I came here and I was given a car. This is my car. I'm driving around. This is my robot. It's like an avatar. But I want to take care of it because this is how I'm operating here. You lose that sense of ego. You realize that this is not you, that this is just a way you're interacting. You come back with severe compassion for other people. You see them for the first time. Nothing's what it seems. The whole world's different. I see everything.
What kind of abilities have you developed that you didn't have before you had this experience?
You could say that I've healed the body. Coming out of the coma, they back to, okay, he's going to die any minute now. They were going to give me a lung transplant. They said my lungs were shot, that I was going to die because my lungs were shot. I was denied the lung transplant because I wasn't vaccinated. So they said I was going to die again. I didn't die. They said I'd be on the ventilator for the rest of my life, probably live in a nursing home if I survived. And that was considered good. I was on the ventilator for 70 days.
What's the biggest physical feat you've completed since you've been off of that ventilator?
Learning to breathe on my own. My diaphragm was paralyzed. My body was paralyzed. It could jerk and twitch. So I had to do this weird jerking motion to breathe. My mind kept my body alive, just staring at your legs and they don't move. It's crazy. My son would move my legs. I can remember I could start wiggling my toes, but I couldn't feel them. I'd have to ask them, are they moving? I came home in a wheelchair. They said I was going to be on oxygen the rest of my life. That I'd probably be able to walk, but that was considered good. So I had to learn to walk and talk and eat, chew. My jaw was atrophied, swallow. When I came home, it was scary. I was on oxygen. But I shook that off too and just started trying to walk. I'd hired a physical therapist that was amazing. The insurance paid for 2 hours a week physical therapy. And the therapist that I knew said, look, you need to have therapy every day or you will not get better. So I had to hire her and she was brutal. First learning to stand, which was very hard. And then just small little steps on a walker. I had all kinds of bad things happen to me, setbacks, things wrong with my organs and things from the drugs. When I got home, I threw away all the pharmaceuticals. In the hospital, they had me on crazy drugs. We call it ICU psychosis. Part of me at some point wondered whether it was all part of the drugs.
You mean your experience?
Yes. I don't remember the crazy stuff from the drugs, like your dreams. I remember everything about the near death.
That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. I was talking to your wife, Maria, before we started this interview, and she said that when you came out of your coma, the very first thing you began to communicate was your experience and what had happened. And she
Yeah.
said you communicated it because you didn't want to forget.
I wasn't able to write maybe 2, 3 weeks. They kept putting a pen in my hand, and my right hand was the first thing I could move, my fingers. And they'd put a pen in my hand, but I couldn't hold it. And I was stuck laying in a bed, so they would try to get me to write. We have the writings, and I was light. I was the light. Eventually, I drew pictures of what it looked like. Lights in a tunnel. I remembered all kinds of things, though. It's like I knew everything. I couldn't write it all down. I knew things about people.
Like what? Can you give us example?
You can't remember. I can remember just having all this knowledge. They gave me compassion for people because I knew things about them that nobody else knew.
Mm.
There again, it was like a remembering. I wish I could remember them.
What's interesting, Drew, one of the things that I've struggled with my out of body experiences is that when I become my soul again, and as soon as I come back, this feeling again is I cannot believe I have forgotten, even since the last time I did it. I've had 18 of these experiences.
Yeah.
And what I feel like I've learned over time is that what we truly are is so massive and is so contrary to anything we are in a human body that you don't have the human brain capacity to connect to what you really are, to fully remember it, unless you go back again. Do you
Yeah.
feel that way? I feel like you and I feel the same way about that becoming the soul.
There's no words. You can't.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's so big. You're just so much more powerful. You're literally everything. You're
You called
control.
this a speck. You called this a speck. Is that because in the scheme of everything, this life that we're living is so minuscule in compared to the entirety of what we are?
Yeah, you are your experiences. This experience you're having in this body, what you think is you, is just a gathering point of experiences. But so is everybody else. It's all you. It's like fingers on a hand, you know? They feel separate and they're connected. So if you chop one finger off and this one, they're like, oh no, and you miss it. When somebody leaves this place, you miss them. Why do you miss them? Because their experiences are no longer being generated here. You value their experience, good and bad. Everyone. That's why you have compassion. You're like, oh no, I just lost a piece of myself.
What is the biggest way that you're different now than before you had your near death experience?
I'm more patient, tremendously more compassionate, loving. Um, I am grateful. I'm grateful to know that I'm in charge of this body, and then I can use this body to help the others, to make them feel like they're not alone. It's you helping you, to everybody out there. You're not alone. It's impossible. And I think deep down, everybody feels it. Disease, a disconnected, whether it's by separation, physically or mentally through computers and things, creates this illusion that you're separate and you're alone. Nobody loves me. It can't be further from the truth. If any one of you had the experience I had, you'd never hurt another soul.
That's a pretty big statement. So the people that are watching, they're
Mhm.
likely not going to have a near death experience. What can they do to reconnect with themselves, and what can they do to be the best version of themselves based on what you've learned?
Control their mind. Surround yourself with people that make you feel good. Attempt to be more giving, more loving. Children do this very well. I think great age gives it to you too. Be grateful for this gift to have this experience. There's nothing to worry about. Stop living in fear. What are you going to do with this life? How are you going to use it? Selfishly, productively? Like when you're a parent, you do everything you can to help your children. And then when you grow up, you do everything to help your parents, help your friends. I think the best thing you can do is be the best person you can be. Be the best husband, the best wife, the best friend, the best parent, the best grandparent, the best neighbor. Try to prevent people from feeling alone and separate. That's the only real cause of suffering. And then it perpetuates itself. People who are suffering and feel alone do violent things. Like I said, we're creation machines, but creation and destruction are the same. When you know who you really are, you create. When you forget, you destroy. Remember that.
That's really important. So you're an artist. Did your art change a lot after you came back?
It's interesting. My art's been very psychedelic my whole life.
Mm.
Everybody thought I was, on drugs my whole life. Really 60s and album covers looking like 70s album cover looking art. And the truth is that I prided myself on being clear. Never smoked weed or anything. And I always had a real deep connection with nature. As an artist, you tend to see things visually and slow things down. But now I look at it like it's crazy, like it's almost like I've known all along.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I think that this is fascinating to me. You have this entire kit prepared. You have ivermectin in there, for God's sakes, which,
Yeah.
for those people watching who don't know, there were a large group of population, a lot of doctors who found that antibiotic, which was suppressed when people had it, it immediately took all the COVID symptoms and knocked it out and let you get through that really quickly. So here you have this entire kit and you've got all that prepared. And when you develop COVID, you are days away from that kit. It seems so ironic to me. And it makes me feel like this for you was meant to happen.
Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I think that I volunteered or something. Maybe so somebody else didn't have to, or maybe
For
because
the
I was,
experience.
yeah, for the experience to that I would survive it. I don't know. What I can tell you is that it was absolutely brutal. I can understand why so many people gave up. Horrendous things happened to me in that hospital. And it's very humbling that you can be reduced to so little. And I hope one day there's some accountability for what happened. I don't believe this was a natural virus. I believe it was created. I think pretty sure we know that now. Nobody seems to talk about it. They killed millions of people, and it wasn't the doctors or nurses' fault that they were handed this bomb. Maybe some of the protocols from the higher ups in the medical system maybe have some accountability, but definitely the corporations and entities that created this should be held accountable. And I think that day will come, and I will be there when it does.
I'm sorry for the experience that you went through, but I am so grateful for this story and for you sharing this story with the world about helping to people to understand the power of who they truly are. It's to me one of the most important messages for one person watching this video to truly grasp what they are and to get it, or to help them begin the journey to them waking them up to the power of their soul. The ripple effect on the world, Drew, is unknowable with
It's
what you're
real.
doing and sharing your story.
It's real. It's what people have been trying to tell us for thousands of years. But there again, there's no words to tell it correctly. Even me, I'm doing a terrible job of describing it.
We lack so many words. And I think you're doing an amazing job because it's difficult to make something into a picture and a story you can understand when this experience is ineffable.
Yeah. And there again, it was like a feeling. Gosh, it felt so amazing. It still does. And I just know there's nothing to worry about. I'm not afraid of anything. That's, you asked earlier how I've changed. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not worried about anything. I know that everything will come out in the wash, that there's nothing, no one to convince of anything. There's nobody to fight. When I mention accountability, it's just an understanding of what went wrong and why not to do it again. There's no lying to anybody. When you connect with who you really are, nobody's lying to anybody, truly. It's impossible to lie. It's impossible to, it's all accountability at that point. It's all mind. And you either decide to take control of that mind or you allow yourself to be controlled. And why would you ever want to do that? It's there again. I don't know how or what I'm supposed to do with this information. It's not like I want to. I have a life and an experience that I love very much. So I'm here, and people that come in contact with me and people who ask, I tell them. But I'm not so sure people want to hear all this. Some people do, some people are ready. But honestly, I think most people are not ready. And you can't tell somebody who's not ready. You just have compassion for them. And just, okay, I know. You feel alone. You feel scared. I know. It's okay. So it's your caught. So anybody who comes, you can tell them, people who are ready.
Yeah, that's good advice. So people want to connect to your artwork or people want to connect to you. Are you open to that? And how would they do that?
Yeah, we have a website, drewbrophyart.com, which is really cool. And then Instagram and all that, just Drew Brophy. But yeah, we have an art gallery in San Clemente, and we're here every day. And we do events, and we surf a lot, and we try to do cool things and live life to the fullest.
I love it. Drew, I think I feel such a calm talking to you. You have a just a gorgeous energy. I can feel the compassion coming off of you. And I'm sure that people watching can feel the same. I am so grateful to have been able to have this conversation. I often say I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world to be able to talk to somebody like you, to pick your brain, to get hints and recommendations about what we can do to live the best version of this life while we're here. So I'm just so grateful for you coming on our show and sharing your experiences. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really hard. It's been hard talking about this stuff and doing interviews. I know that it needs to get out there, so I do them. I'm still processing it all. My biggest goal was to get strong again, and I am there. I'm actually stronger than I was before.
Wow.
And so I think now that I'm strong again, I can start putting more energy into others. I met that requirement. They wanted me to be strong again, so I'm strong again. I can't help anybody if I wasn't strong. So I don't know what's next, but I'm here. I'm still here.
You're still here. There's definitely a reason. If it was your time, you wouldn't be here anymore. So
Yeah,
that's a testament to that for sure.
yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you so much to everybody for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.